Hey friends, I wanted to tell you about a new project I'm working on that I'm really excited about. And this project is emerging from a series of conversations I've had over the last couple of years that at first seemed totally unrelated to each other, but I haven't been able to get out of my head. A couple of years ago, I was at this community event, and I was standing on the edges of the room talking to this man in his mid-60s. And he was telling me that his wife wasn't with him that night because she'd stayed home to have a dinner party with her friends. And he described for me just what an amazing time his wife and her friends have every time they get together, and how much fun he has when they let him stay in the room with them. And then at a certain point in this description, he just kind of paused and gave a deep sigh and said, "You know, what I don't understand is why men aren't allowed to have friends." A while after that conversation, I was sitting at a baseball game next to a woman in her mid-30s who I'd just met. And this woman is working a high-powered, really important job. She's very successful and just making a huge difference in a whole lot of people's lives. And she's describing to me her job and this deep sense of passion and purpose she has when she works. And then she began to describe her experience of going home every night. She walks in the door and drops the keys and sits down on the sofa and turns on the TV, and it's like the bottom just kind of falls out of all sense of purpose and meaning. And she doesn't know what to do but just sit there and wait for the morning to come. I've had all of these smaller conversations with parents of young children who talk about how desperate they are for some kind of adult interaction and just a sense of connection with some other person. And then I talk to people in the middle of their lives who are maybe single or don't have children who say, "You know, the thing I wish for more than anything is just that someone would treat me like a member of their family." In the midst of all of these conversations, I got to look at some research that was done by the health company Cigna, who were doing a survey about Americans and the experience of loneliness. And one of the pieces of data that jumped out at me was they reported that only about half of Americans surveyed said they have a meaningful in-person interaction with another person like a family member or friends daily. Only half of Americans are having a meaningful in-person interaction daily with a family member or a friend. That number just blew my mind. I mean, loneliness apparently isn't just the province of the kind of stereotypical cat lady. It's something that people are struggling with, both men and women, young and old, and married and single, just in all situations in life. And the thing is, more and more research that's being done in the health field is telling us how significant the health effects of loneliness are, that it's not just an emotional phenomenon. Chronic loneliness has been linked to increased risk in things like heart disease and diabetes and dementia. Recent research has even shown that loneliness has a greater effect on lifespan than a significant smoking habit. Learning all of this information, I've just kind of been sitting with it thinking to myself, is this really the best we can do? I mean, surely we can imagine a better possibility for life than this. Christians talk all the time about the gospel, the good news of Jesus. But the thing about the good news is what part of that news strikes you as best may depend part on what your cultural situation is. In the ancient world where Christianity first emerged, one of the things they were experiencing was a kind of moral vacuum. The good news of Christianity, in part, was a way of living, a way of framing your life and the choices that you made that struck the people in this world as incredibly good news. In the Middle Ages, when they were in this time of early death and just tons of disease and plague, part of the good news of Christianity that was especially good was the promise of life after death. So I've been wondering, what might the good news of Christianity be to a culture that is struggling so much with the effects of isolation and individualism and chronic loneliness? Could we, as the church, the people of Jesus, could we dare to imagine there is a better way of being human together? Could we dare to imagine that there's a better way of living life than the way that most of us are living, on this endless commute back and forth just between our job and our own private garage? So this is why I'm bringing this project to you. Right now, I'm looking to hear from more people, just their own stories and experience around this. I mean, whatever your background or kind of station in life, what has your experience of loneliness been? And how have you seen or imagined this experience could be disrupted? I would love to hear what many of you think. If you're interested in following what's emerging from this research and the writing I'm doing, subscribe to the blog, and I'll let you know more as the project develops.